Good evening, everybody. And shocker, shocker, we did have some technical difficulties, but we're here.
Yay!
Woohoo! Welcome to tonight's edition of Bordertown Strange. It's our Strange Bordertown. I'm Pam, and this is my co-host Jess. And tonight we're going to deep dive into our origin stories. Our neck of the woods are steeped in lore, legends, ghosts, Bigfoots, UFOs, cryptids, and more. So come on and hang out with us while we dig into our roots in the Caney River Valley and just a little bit beyond. But
Hey.
before we dive in, we're going to get started with our What the Weird Word. And this week it was my turn. So let me switch screens real quick here. Oh, I don't have my screen up. So sorry. There we go. All righty. The What the Weird Word this week is thought form, which is an intentional haunting of a place or an object that can be sensed by others or take on a form. A really good example of this that we have here is the Philip experiment, which was conducted in Toronto, Canada in the 70s. This one is often cited as an example of how a strong belief and suggestion can influence people's perceptions of paranormal phenomena. So basically what they did, Philip was a doll, and they tried to intentionally haunt this doll to see if it could be done. And so everyone sat down and they actually made a whole backstory for him. You know, he was born on this day. This was his parents. You know, this is what he did in his life. This was, you know, his birthday. This is the day that he died. This is how he died, the whole 9 yards. And so then they started to try to contact him. And, you know, they would go over this story and say, hey, we know this happened to you. And they started getting responses. And it was really crazy. It was like the more they put into it, the more they got out of it. So I know you may have heard me talk about the haunted ramen experiment with the Newkirks. And this is kind of based on the same thing. They kind of based it around the Philip experiment. It works, guys. It's crazy, but it works. So it really has changed the thought about what is a ghost, you know. And so I thought that was a really good one to bring up this week because we don't know what they are for sure. So this is just
Yeah.
another way to look at it.
A good example of that for people at home, everyone's heard of the Dybbuk box. And as we all well know now, or you should know, the Dybbuk box was completely faked. The gentleman who had the original Dybbuk box came forward and was like, hey, I made all this up. I even made up the background to it and the old legend. It was all just silliness. And he
Yep.
goes, and people latched onto it and they just ran with it. But now there are Dybbuk boxes out there that are acting very strange. They do weird things that you can hear knocking in them. People who have them have bad luck. And that is a type of thought form. People have put so much belief into an object that it actually becomes haunted.
Yep.
Yeah. So craziness. It's actually very interesting for us as investigators to have a possibility of something being haunted that was never haunted in the first place. We've run onto this now where Agnes.
It's Agnes. Here, I'll drop the screen for a second so everybody can meet Agnes that hasn't.
Yes.
This is Agnes, my haunted ramen. Agnes McLeod.
Yes. Agnes goes everywhere with us on trips.
She does.
And what people don't realize is that she was actually at the front of the Paracon the whole time.
She was. She was sitting on the table right beside me when we were doing the live streams.
Yeah.
So pretty cool. We have some people in the chat. There's Rick Lepley and Jackie and Enzo and Chris. So hey everybody.
Hey.
Thanks for hanging out for round 2. Had a little bit of a false start, but
we so apologize for that. Yeah, that was
bad.
We're lucky it doesn't happen more often. Really.
I know. I'm like, oh no, we're actually live. Whoops. All right. So here, before I start clicking into things, did you have some housekeeping, Jess, at the beginning, or do you want to Okay.
Yeah, I can do a little bit of housekeeping. Really
Alrighty.
quick. Thank you so much for joining us, of course, in the chats. And if you're watching, if you're on Facebook, just take a quick second to hit share and like. And if you're over on YouTube, remember to give us that thumbs up and hit the bell if you haven't yet, so you can be the first to know when we go live or we bring new content. We are so appreciative to all of our new followers and subscribers. We can't thank you enough. So thank you.
For sure.
Also, I'm going to do a little quick. We're coming down to the end of the year now. We have 2 more shows before the end of the year. So our next show will be November 20th. And then our last show of the year will be December 4th. Make sure you join us for that one because we're planning on throwing a big Christmas party for all of our podcasting friends. So we're going to try to have everybody in and play some notebook games and maybe some other games and have everybody bring their best Christmas ghost story. So that should
Yep.
be fun. And then we're going to go dark until the beginning of the new year, where we'll start out fresh with all new shows. So make sure to catch these last couple of shows before we go out for the end of the year.
I think it's
And
amazing. This is our 21st show already.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
We were talking about that backstage. It doesn't seem like 20 some shows.
No,
So it's a little weird.
it is. It's very cool though. And our first season coming to an end. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
And we're still doing it. We didn't like give up halfway through in tears.
Yeah, and I think Mark told us is that if you hit show number 15, you're good to go. Usually, your longevity's there. So most shows crap out before show 50 or by show 15. Yeah. So yay us!
Woo!
Woohoo!
We didn't crap out.
We didn't crap out. We just screw up occasionally, but we didn't crap out. Chelsea,
all right, so
your show can drink now. We're 21.
Oh, it's not nearly as fun to drink then, though, because, you're legal.
Jackie, actually, before we move on real quick, Jackie said they talked to the guy again that has told us his story. We're still trying to figure out what 3-clawed cryptid is in Oklahoma. That's a good question. We need to work on that one. I'm going to make a note so I don't forget to look into it again. 3-clawed.
Well, while she's doing that, I'm going to kind of get us started in for the evening. So when we were contemplating what the topic of the show is going to be, I realized we're Bordertown Strange, and we have yet on this platform to discuss why we are such a strange border town. And the reason why our investigative team and the Bordertown Paranormal Group and Bordertown Strange came about is because solely of the area that we live in. It is very, very weird. We have just about every kind of strangeness going on. We've got UFOs, and we've got cryptids, and we've got Bigfoot, and we've got hauntings like crazy, and we've got little people and dogmen and pterodactyls, and name it, we got it. And you probably can't name everything that we have.
No, for sure.
Disappearing, reappearing houses. We got ley lines and charged rivers and
the Fae.
The Fae. We've got weird lights happening. We've got cult activity that used to be in the area. It runs the gambit. And we're not going to go deep dive in on all of these tonight, but we're going to try to cram in as much as we can so you can kind of get an idea of where this is that we're coming from and what got us motivated to be in these paranormal groups and to start this and do the research and bring it all to you. And it's basically the origins of Bordertown Strange. So did you want to start first with Lady in Black, or?
Sure. Hang on just a second. Scotty's in the chat too, and he said, what was it? A creep clod? Maybe. Instead of Santa Claus. Creep claws. I don't know, Scotty. That's a good one. Scotty's actually in Red Dirt Cryptids. He's also part of Bordertown Paranormal now. So Jackie, he was probably going to be a pretty good person to take that info to. So we'll get with him and share that with him. Because he has more contacts and ties down in Oklahoma than we do. So yeah, Rick said they've been doing research on their end and have come up with some stuff, but still not making much sense. Yeah, some of those might end up being more obsolete. So we'll get a hold of Brian with Scotty and see if they have ran across anything. They're more likely to than we have down in that area for sure. So, okay. moving on. Let's pull up the first one that we're going to talk about is the woman in black. And what I added, just found some pictures of Caney that were taken about the same time that this was going around town. And you may have to jump in with me on this, some of it.
Okay.
I did add in the original article that was put in the Caney paper. And it says, The Woman in Black. Caney has a mystery. Not a ghost story, but a real mysterious person is what they said. Gossip this week has been confined to a mysterious personage known to Caney as the Woman in Black because no one has yet discovered who the ghost-like woman is to give it any other name. The Woman in Black makes her appearance every evening about 10 o'clock in the northeast part of town. Her gown is black, and she wears a veil or fascinator drawn tightly over her face. She speaks to nobody for fear, no doubt, of being detected. So far, she has done no harm. Those who have tried to catch her are witnesses to the charge that she can run like a racehorse. Some people think it's a ghost, while others think it is a man dressed up for some purpose of causing a little sensation in Caney. We have heard it stated that some think it a spirit of evil come to capture the boys and girls who prowl around late hours at night, and gives as a reason that she visits the place frequented by lads and lassies. There did end up being more information that was printed in the papers later. And the story went that she was going up and knocking on doors, and some people were too scared to answer the doors, and it ended up everybody was in before dark at some point for quite a while. But somebody finally talked to her, and she said that she was looking for her child that they had been on a wagon train that had gone through Caney, and the child had died, and they had to bury it on the banks of Mud Creek, which is just southeast of the city limits of Caney. And she was, looking for her child because she had died apparently, and she was looking for this child to be reunited with it. So her big thing was to find it and have it given a proper burial. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
So
And
one of the stories goes, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the stories. So the people in town at the time actually knew of the grave that was there on the banks of Mud Creek, and that there was a grave of a child. And the story goes that they did remove it to the cemetery, reburied it, gave it a proper Christian burial, and then she was never seen again. So that's one of the stories. What story do you know, Jess?
Another one was that it was more like a death shroud lady who was wandering the roads because she had lost her child while on the wagon train, and she had died hunting for it. That it had never been buried. There's several of them. The first one that Pam told, however, is the one that has stuck.
Yeah.
This is actually one of the oldest ghost stories in the area. It dates back to 1902, just to give you an idea of how old this is. But it was wildly told throughout all the papers in the area. I have copies from the Bartlesville Magnet, a newspaper that hasn't been around in a very long time. I have copies from the Chatopa paper. I have copies from the Independence paper. And I think I have one from the Sedan paper at the time. All pretty much the same, but with little extra flares to it. Every paper, of course, had to give it a little spice.
Yes. That's so true.
Yeah, but this is Caney's one claim to like a public type of haunting where multiple people saw it. I tend to believe that something very close to this story probably did happen, or she was spotted several times by at least a few people. I know that one of the grocery store owners claimed to have seen her. One of the bankers had claimed to see her. And several other business owners and townspeople who were well respected at the time. So I can't imagine that they would have all faked this story. So.
Yeah, they had it behooved them to not make up stories because of their position in the town. So yeah, it was more than like there was something for sure. There was a kernel of truth in it somewhere. Yeah. So that's the Woman in Black. So yeah, that is a good one to start off with. Fun. All right. The next one we have, let me stop this one before it goes. I got to remember to catch these before they move on us. We'll have a couple of different clips to play tonight that some of these, if you are in the Caney area and you've been to any of our Border Town presents, some of these you may have heard before. But we did want to share these on Border Town Strange so more people could hear these because they're pretty cool stories. This particular one is on Captain Stone. Do you want to talk about it, Jess?
Oh, I actually let you talk about it because this is
Okay.
more your story.
Yeah, this was a house that I came to know because one of my best friends purchased it, and it was in the early '90s when she bought it, and it was an older Victorian. And I actually pulled a picture of the house in question. Doesn't look quite like this anymore, but it does still stand in Caney. And I'm kind of glad it doesn't look like this because people live in it, so we don't really want to point it, we're not going to put a picture of it how exactly it looks today because we don't want anybody going up and knocking on their doors or anything. So this particular house, it's our understanding that before Caney really became a town, there was a town just across the Oklahoma line called Ennisville. And when they went through and redid the state lines and things, they realized that they had put it just a little far too south and into Indian territory, which later became Oklahoma. So they picked up some of the residents and moved them up to Caney, or to what would become Caney. This particular house happened to be one of them. Now they did add on to it once it was in Caney, and when my friend owned it, she had a business in it, and in the dress room, in one of the closets, you could see the white clapboard where it used to be the outside of the house where they had added on. So that was kind of cool. But when she purchased it, I helped her clean it out. Another friend of ours, well, there's a few friends that helped her clean it out. And then she did a lot of remodeling on it. And if you've heard me tell the story about hanging wallpaper over old paneling and going up and down a ladder, and I had to keep a hammer with me because there was the nails everywhere on that wall. You couldn't see them because it was the dark paneling. So, you'd think you had them all pulled, but the second you get up there and start hanging wallpaper, you'd find a nail. So you'd have to pull it out and, keep wallpapering. So I kept this hammer hanging on the ladder, and I had gone up and started hanging some more wallpaper, ran across the nail, went to grab my hammer, and it wasn't there. I was like, what did I must have left it on the ground, or it fell. So I go back down and it's nowhere around me at all. And I had just used it. So I hollered at my friend. She was in the other room, and I said, "Hey, did you come get that hammer?" And she was like, "No, I haven't been in there." So she comes in and helps me look for it too. We can't find it anywhere. So we go out to the garage where she keeps some more tools, and we grabbed another hammer, and we come back in, and, I go up, I get the nail out of the wall, finish wallpapering, and I go to step back down, and I stepped on the original hammer. And it scared me so badly because it was not there. So if you've heard me tell a Newport story, this is a Newport where it was there, then it's not. But it scared me because, that's a weapon. That can be a weapon. And how's something moving that around without being there, So that was not my original thing that ever happened to me paranormally, but it was one of the first and one of the scariest for sure. But again, this happened to be the house that it occurred in. And then it was quite a few years later that we went back. I want to say it was either the end of 2012, beginning of 2013. We had just become a team. And my friend's daughter owned the house, and my friend had passed on at this time. So her daughter let us go in and investigate, and we were in the kitchen, and it starts out with Jess and I, and I'm going to have to find that original clip because we're sitting at the kitchen table and we're like, "Okay, I'm going to do shave and a haircut. Can you finish it?" So I do and we sit there and wait. And instead of hearing a knock, knock, we very clearly heard a woman say, "Yes." And then Jess and I are looking at each other and we're like, "Did you hear that? Oh my God. Yeah, we heard it, And unfortunately, when we listened to the recording later, it did catch the yes, but it also caught the rest of a voice, and we talked right over the top of it.
We talked over it.
So we don't know what it said at that point. But we did keep the recorder running, and Mark was in there, and I don't know, was Mark in there at the time? I don't know. Anyway, it was
Yeah.
at least Jess and I there, and I'll play this clip because on it it says you will hear Pam and Jessica speaking, and then a click, and then immediately you hear a voice say, "It's just me." So I'm going to play this. It's just me. I'll play it again.
I couldn't hear any of it.
Did you not hear it at all?
Uh-uh.
Hang on, wrong button. Did anybody else hear that? You're not hearing it?
Mm-mm.
No. Huh. Well, that's a bummer. Enzo, any clues of how I can make it be heard? Darn it.
Oh, man.
No sound on this end. Oh, that bums me out. Okay. Anyway, it does say very clearly it's just me. What I'll do, we have it on our YouTube page too. So what I'll do is I'll link it in the comments on this once we end the live stream, so everyone can go back and hear it. That makes me sad. Darn it. I should have tested it beforehand. Sorry, guys. Well, I can hear it on this end, so
Yeah.
boo.
That's all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's move on.
One of the more interesting investigations that we've done, we learned a lot at that house. We actually investigated there multiple times. And the second time we investigated there, we had a lot of activity happening. And Mark had been going around with his meter, checking all the appliances and the outlets to see how much bleed through there was on the EMF. And he found out that there was a very old oven there with a built-in timer and clock. And this thing was just bleeding EMF so high. And we thought we were being smart. And he was like, well, let's unplug this thing because it's just so high. And he unplugged it and the house went dead. We got nothing else that night. And that was the day we realized maybe the entities and ghosts are using this energy to manifest and to do what they need to do. So womp womp, we learned our lesson.
We did, but like she said, we learned a very important lesson on top of that you can actually use energy like that to help fuel things, to give them a little bit more of a oomph. And Enzo, I did click the audio slider when I shared it, and it's not wanting to do it. So boo. I know.
That's okay.
That's the only one that was a listen to. The others are visual, so we'll be good with them. So sorry, guys. Bummer.
All right, next one. All right, so this one's kind of mine. This is not the oldest firehouse in Caney, but this firehouse was started to be used, I believe, in the 60s, 50s and the 60s, so somewhere
in there. Yeah.
This is what the Caney Firehouse was. It's no longer in this building. Now it's actually storage for the firemen and for some other city stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. This building actually was originally a funeral parlor, believe it or not. It's very fascinating inside. If you ever get the chance to be in there, go in. At the time that this picture was taken, so downstairs, of course, was the bays for the fire department trucks and the tankers, an office, and then upstairs was some storage towards the back, and the front was like a weight room for the firefighters to use. And in the very back of that upper floor is the original elevator. There was an elevator that went down the back, and it was used, creepily enough, for the caskets. So they would get the bodies ready and load them in the caskets up on top, and then they would be lowered down to the bottom to be taken out for the funerals. And that was still there. Now, the story goes, I actually didn't realize that there was any issues with the fire department until about 15-ish years ago, when I was contacted by our our fire chief at the time, I won't name any names, but requested that I come in and take a look. Now, this is before Bordertown Paranormal, so I was just kind of doing stuff on my own, as we all were at the time. We all did our own stuff. And he asked me to come in and take a look because his guys, the fire department, was having a hard time staying in the building by themselves, let alone using that workout room. Apparently, there was balls rolling and weights coming off of the racks. There was sounds of stomping up and down the staircase to get up there. They were seeing shadows pass by on a wall down on the first floor at the back of the bay area. And it just frankly had all the firemen spooked, which I think is hysterical. Our big old volunteer firemen just being too scared to even use a weight room.
It is.
Yeah. So they called me in to investigate, and I was going through the place and kind of getting a feel for it. I asked to go upstairs so I could take a look, and the fire chief told me good luck. He was going to stay down there. Way to be chivalrous. But I went up because that's what we do. And there was a whole lot of activity. And I will say this, the fire department had put balls and toys up there thinking they could appease whatever this thing was. And frankly, I think all it did was encourage the activity. I did get some fantastic photos out of this place. And unfortunately, as seems to go with a lot of our very good investigations, those pictures showed up missing out of my roll. Off of that back area where the elevator is, I got a picture of something I can't really explain. It was a very dark shadow, and it was very wonky looking. And it was also curled up in a ball underneath the elevator. So unsure what that was. I did do some research and found out that a little boy had fallen out of the side window that the staircase lit up, and there was a window at the top, and the little boy had fallen out of that window and had passed, unfortunately. And I do believe it was that little boy. I did do my best to kind of clean it out a little bit, but unfortunately, I don't think it completely worked because the firemen didn't stay in this building for a whole lot longer after that. They very quickly soon built a brand new department, which they're in now, a few blocks away. And of course, like I said, this one is still used for storage. I have heard claims from some of the fire department workers and from some of the city crew workers, because some of the city crew stuff is held in this building, that they will often see a little boy with his face pressed against that first window at the top and against that glass door at the bottom. If you drive past there now, like I said, this picture was actually taken from, I believe, the mid-90s. If you go and look now, those windows and that door is now covered.
Yeah.
So you can't see anything look out anymore. And I always wondered if they covered them up
for
that reason.
It could be.
Yeah. So if you get a chance to drive past the old firehouse building, take a look up in the windows and see if you can wave at the little boy, because I'm pretty sure he's still in there knocking stuff down the stairs.
And it's located right off of 4th Street to this. You turn south on State Street. And if you go downtown Caney and you see the RCB Bank, it's right across to the east of it from the drive-through. You'll be facing right at it. I think this picture was actually taken from their parking lot, it looks like.
Yeah, probably.
That's a pretty interesting one. We had a couple of different undertakers in town, and that was one of them. Rick said, it's fun when I learned something while on here. Grew up in the area and didn't even know that was a firehouse till now. Cool.
Yep.
Yay. We like to teach stuff. Chelsea said, poor boy probably just wants to play with the firefighters. At least show him the fire truck, right?
You'd think
He's probably bored now.
Couldn't even get the fire chief to go up the stairs with me.
And I did, while Jess was telling that, I did go out to YouTube and grab the link for that It's Just Me EVP and put it in the comments. if
Wonderful.
anyone's interested. Okay. Here we go to the next one. You want to do this one?
We can. So Caney has 3 bridges that all have the same name.
Yep.
And the same feels around them. But it's good that we talk about these because a lot of the activity that we have outside of Caney here happens within the triangle that these bridges make. So this bridge that you're seeing here is what now everyone sees and calls Monster Bridge. It's actually on the old river road that goes the back way in towards the river access underneath the previous Monster Bridge that popped up around the late 70s. That bridge was built in when the Army Corps of Engineers built in Copan Lake to the south of us. They bought out the properties that way, rerouted the road over about, I think it was like 20 feet.
Yeah, probably.
Probably more than that, probably 30, 40 feet. And built in a new bridge, and that bridge became Crybaby Monster Bridge.
Yeah.
And then this is the last one that we're looking at here. I don't actually have a picture today of that original Monster Bridge. I couldn't find it anywhere. I went hunting and I couldn't find it. So to set you up so you know what we're talking about, when you're heading out east of Caney, west
West of Caney.
You're heading west of Caney. Why do I always get that mixed up?
I'm
You're heading west of Caney.
over here nodding.
Yeah. Out towards the sand hills, you're going to come across that newer bridge. You're going to drive right over the top of it. And right after that, you're going to hit Four Corners. And we're going to talk about Four Corners here in a little bit because there's actually a monster named after it. At Four Corners is where one road split off to take you down south into Oklahoma. And on that road, which is now closed off, but you can actually still walk it, is the original Monster Bridge. And then the Monster Bridge you're looking at now, if you could go straight across that road the other way to the north, it would attach you right onto this road where this Monster Bridge is at. In which case, you can't do this anymore when they rerouted the road. You have to go clear around the old river road to come back in on it, right? But it creates this triangle, which I think is super interesting. And each bridge has kind of the same stories, but each has kind of some different stories. So the original bridge that you can walk to, it holds more of the Bigfoot tales, more of the monster scratched my car when I was making out with my girlfriend stories, right?
It does.
Yeah. The second bridge, the newer bridge that you actually drive out on now, and there should be a picture of it somewhere. I don't know where that is.
It's with some of the other Bigfoot stuff. So we'll point it out when we get there.
Yeah.
It's called
it here in a little bit.
Too. The newer one is.
Yeah. So the newer one is also a Monster Bridge, Crybaby Bridge. But that bridge is actually known more for its Crybaby stuff, which has actually popped up within the last 30 years. It's not an old story. And frankly, just to be completely honest, it is the same crybaby stories you hear everywhere. It's simply an urban legend that has attached itself to the nearest bridge solely because high schoolers and stuff want to tell a creepy story, along with the tree, which I'll tell you about here in a little bit.
So Rick's asking, the original Monster Bridge is open to the public? No, it isn't. It's actually closed off. It's to the south of the road where you access the sand hills. You can, however, walk down in there. Hunters park there and walk in. It's about a quarter of a mile down that road if you walk in on it, but it's to the south.
Yeah. So there's that bridge. It has more of a crybaby thing to it, and you'll know it when you go out there. You have to cross over it, and it's just covered in graffiti. Actually, when I was in high school, it was called Graffiti Bridge. It didn't have a crybaby thing attached to it at the time. However, the Four Corners Monster was attached to it, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. So the third bridge, the one that we're looking at here now, is the popular Crybaby Monster Bridge right now. And this one is a haunted / monster bridge because it has cryptid Bigfoot attached to it. No
This was known
crybaby, I believe, on this
when
one.
I was in high school. It depends on which generation you grew up in as to
Yeah,
which was the
it
monster
skips.
bridge,
Yeah.
crybaby bridge. When I was in high school, this picture that we're showing now, that was monster bridge.
hmm It skips
So
everywhere.
it does. It just
But
depends on when you grew up.
yeah, like I said, these three bridges create a triangle. It's the heart of haunted rural Caney. Everything you can think of happens within this triangle. A little weird. And the river's right there too,
Mhm.
interestingly enough.
Yeah, if we're looking south at this bridge right here, we're facing south. So if you went to your left to the east,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, would it be about a half mile, probably, or quarter mile, half mile, somewhere in there? I'm really bad with distances. The river would be right. The Caney River would be right
Yeah,
there.
yeah. All three bridges are within a quarter mile of each other.
Tim's saying it looks like it's on the Corps of Engineering land.
It is.
To the south side, yeah, for sure it is.
Yeah. It's all hunting. I will say, so you are welcome to walk down there. No one is going to stop you because it's just open property. People use it for hunting, people use it for fishing. If you do go down there, please, no matter what time of year it is, please wear something very bright
Yeah.
and please be loud while you're
Mhm.
doing it because there are hunters down there that will mistake you for a deer moving through those because
Yep.
it's very grown over. Like there's just one strip, a little bit of road left, and it's very grown over. So please be careful.
Yep.
And if you see anything cool, let us know.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, we ready to move forward?
We are.
All right. Now, this one, I'll tell this one. A
Yeah.
friend of mine had actually keyed me in on this, and I apologize for the really crappy picture, but I took it. I had gone out to, we had a lot of rain over the weekend. So Sunday, I had gone out to the dam, and on the way back, I took a picture of Cheyenne Creek because when I had first went out to the dam, well, I take that back. We had gone to Winfield the day before, and we went this route, and when we went by, it was completely dry. And so when I was coming back through, I was don't tell anybody, but I was kind of like trying to drive and take a picture out the window, and this is the best I could get.
Oh,
I
shame.
know. But it was over the banks, which I thought was
Mhm.
crazy when it was just dry the day before. So anyway, this is Cheyenne Creek. That's the best picture I could get of it. And a few years ago, one of my friends was telling me that their grandmother, she was older and she had grown up in the area and she had fished off of Cheyenne Creek her entire life. And she had her one favorite fishing spot out there that she always went to. And this particular day, she was there by herself, which par for the course, she was almost always by herself. And she thought she caught a fish, and whatever it was pulling really hard. So she was reeling it in, and this thing comes up out of the water, and as you can see this picture here, it's kind of a frogman look. It looked at her very disgustedly, and then it sunk back down under the water, and she didn't see it anymore, and it scared the bejesus out of her. Um, she hot-footed at home. She was trying to call uh, her family to let them know they weren't home, but her granddaughter was, which is my friend. And so she told her, "Hey, this I saw this out there." And this is a woman that is very no nonsense. Didn't make up stories, didn't hold any truck with crazy stories, but she was scared. She actually saw something big, human shaped, but with a frog head on it. This is when I found this picture. This was just one that was out on the internet, and there's frogmen in Loveland. Um, so I had pulled this up, and she's like, "Yeah, that sounds really close to what her grandma had described." So that's why I have added that in here. But that's the first time we had heard of that type of cryptid in the area, and
Mhm.
we haven't really heard of any others. But she definitely saw something. And I know this particular person, she's pretty much no nonsense either. And I believe them. You know, they had no
Yeah.
reason to make it up. Her grandmother had absolutely no reason to make it up. So, but that's been an interesting one that we're curious to see if anybody else has some kind of experience or comes across anything that's remotely similar. And, you know, that's something that'll be interesting to see. Caney's been in a drought for a couple of years now. And even with all the rain that we got over this weekend, I think we got over 7 inches.
Mhm.
It's just, I mean, it's not, we're not flooding terribly because it's just sinking in and it's filling things back up. And
Yeah.
I don't think we're where we need to be yet, but we're getting there. But yeah, do you have anything to add to the frogman?
No, I just think it's super cool, and I wish there'd been, like, phones back then so she could have taken a picture of it.
Right? Yeah, this was before cell phones were popular.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know if they had cell phones yet when this occurred, actually. I don't think they
Yeah.
did. I don't think we did. But yeah, that would have been so cool.
Yeah.
But you know, you'll run across that with a lot of cryptid sightings. It happens so quickly and it scares you so badly. The last thing on your mind is to get a picture of it. You know, it's just
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
you know, probably no more than 30 seconds that you're sighting it. And, you know, you don't want to take your eyes off of it because you don't want it coming towards you, you know.
Mm.
So pretty wild.
Yeah.
Interesting one though.
Yes.
I always really liked that one, been fascinated with that one. Chelsea said, I wonder if they know Sinkhole Sam. That's a good question. Maybe,
Perhaps.
yeah, maybe they're
They
all
have a
connected somewhere.
Yeah, maybe they have a cryptid get-together once a year or something.
Ooh, maybe they have a Christmas party.
Ooh, that would be nice.
Could be. All right, let's go to the next one here. Ooh, we'll let you tell this one, Jess.
Oh, yeah. So, for many a year, Highway 75 from Independence, Kansas, all the way down to Skiatook, Oklahoma, has been a strip of weird ghosts walking the road and ghost vehicles that will appear behind you and disappear just as quickly. They've happened all over the place. It's happened to me before. Oddly enough, well, not oddly, it was really interesting. A couple of years ago, one of our investigators out of OPIS, out of the Enid area, I believe. Maybe not Enid. Am I having that wrong? I'm sorry, Chris, if I said that wrong. He was leaving one of our
Edmund. Is it
parties.
Edmund?
I don't think it's Edmund. Uh, he was leaving one of our campfire parties that we have before Paracon, and he took a dirt road out that wasn't a usual road that we take out, and he got stopped by a gentleman in a Jeep who sat there and chit-chatted about the weirdest things, he said. Some very strange things he was talking about, and Chris made his excuses and went to leave, and he got back in the car, and when he looked in his rearview mirror, the Jeep was gone. And there was no place to turn off. It was just one long dirt road. There wasn't even dirt kicked up in the air to show where the Jeep had been. So we don't even know who exactly it was he was talking to.
Freaked him out though.
Yeah, there's a ghost walker that is often seen at the overpass just north of Caney that pops up once in a while. There's a ghost walker that pops up near the one of the four-way lights in just as you come into Dewey at the high school, middle school, elementary school area. There's another walker that pops up just south of Bartlesville, near the turnoff for Gravity Hill Road. And there's another walker that pops up just down almost to the turnoff for Skiatook. There is also a semi truck down there that chases people down and then disappears before they get over the overpass that takes you towards Skiatook. So if you're ever on that strip of highway, just kind of watch out. We can't hear you, Pam.
Oops.
There we
I was like,
go.
sorry about that. Um, goodness. Are you ready to move on?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, cool.
It was just a little quick one. It's just a little unusual. All right, UFOs. Now, we can't possibly tell you every UFO story tonight. That would be too much. But we're going to touch on a few, and I will let you know the UFOs are so consistent these things that we're going to show you tonight and some of the stuff we're going to talk about to you is recent and still happening as we speak.
It is. I'm going to bring up a couple of comments really quick on the last
Okay.
thing. Chelsea said the semi would scare the hell out of me. It would me too, for sure. And Enzo said they disappear after crossing a stream or river. That's a good question.
I don't know about that because the one on 75 often catches people out kind of in the middle of nowhere. There's no streams or rivers where it pops up at. And I've been followed a couple of times by a truck while beside the lake, Copan Lake. But they turn into the lake. They pop up while we're at the lake and we turn in while they're at the lake. So I don't know. Maybe.
Interesting. Well, what we have on this particular slide is a couple of things that we wanted to point out. I grabbed this screenshot to show you. We talk a lot about the 37th parallel and how Caney's right on it. I actually pulled up the latitude so you could see. We are 37.0427421. We are dead on it. That's really cool, actually. I always thought that was fun. Just wanted to share that. Now, these two videos we've talked about before, but I don't believe we've ever shared them. I could be wrong on that. If we did, it was on Bordertown Presents. And there's really no sound. Sorry. Enzo said there would be a deeper UFO research program in the Caney area soon. That's right.
There better be one soon. Yeah, the research guy better be moving in here sometime.
Right. So what these two videos are, we have a friend and they live south of Tyro, which is east of Caney. And he goes to work very early in the morning. So he's up 4:30 going out, and he heads east into Coffeyville. And in the mornings, he sees these lights, and he saw them for quite a few mornings in a row. And finally, he said something to his wife. He was like, "Hey, I have something to tell you, and you're going to think I'm crazy." And she's like, "I already know you're crazy. So what do you got to tell me?" And he's like, "Yeah, I've been seeing these lights in the mornings." And she's like, "That's not crazy. Have you told Pam?" And he was like, "Oh, no, she didn't say that first. She said, 'That's not crazy. Did you video it?'" And he was like, "Well, no." And she's like, "Why not?" And he was like, "I didn't think about it." And she's like, "Take video so you can show it to Pam." And he was like, "Okay, I will do that." So he went out the very next morning and sat off his driveway. And I really like how he did this. He did an excellent job with it because right in here, and you'll see when the camera moves a little bit, that's actually a pole. So he's done a very good job he's got the mailbox and a pole in sights, and that kind of steadies it. So you can see he's not following these lights around or anything. He's dead on them. So you can see the shape that they're moving in. And this is raw footage, so I didn't cut it down any. So I think one's like just a little over a minute and a half, and the other's about 2 minutes. But they're really fascinating. Oh, how funny. Hi, Ian. He said, "Such a tease, Enzo." Right? He needs to get his booty over here, huh? Okay, so this first one, I'll play one and then I'll play the other. But just be looking, you'll see the lights dancing around in it. Come on. And there's the light pole.
Yeah. So while we're sitting here watching these move, we actually have video from someone else of this type of movement too. And Mark's son has caught pictures and video of kind of the same thing in the same general area. It seems like we've got a swath of area to the northeast.
There they are.
Yeah. That are doing this. We have yet to debunk it. I've tried about 1,000 different things to try to figure it out. But they're consistent. They're every night. The only nights you don't see them are the nights that it's cloudy. Yeah, you can see that one right there is super bright.
It's really bright.
Yeah. Another thing while we're sitting here watching this, she was talking about how it's great to have that post in there and um the telephone line
Mailbox.
or
Yeah.
yeah. Um, not only does it give you a steady way of taking the picture, but it also gives us perspective.
Hmm.
It's gonna let us know maybe how far away it is or how large it is, and, if you zoom in on something and only video it that way, we'll never know exactly what's happening with it. It's nice to see its movement through the sky instead of just following it. But of course, once in a while, maybe do go ahead and zoom up into it a little bit and see if you can't catch any more definition on what it is you're looking at.
Enzo said having something in frame as a sense of scale is great. Yeah, he did an excellent
Yes.
job. He really
Yeah.
did. And has anyone tried to communicate back to the lights? Actually, they have, Chelsea. And as soon as
Yes.
we finish watching, well, I'll start this and then Jess can kind of tell you that story. It isn't with this particular sighting, but it's with another. And we're pretty sure it's probably the same lights because it's
Yes.
within a relatively, probably within not even 20 miles, is it? Maybe 10 miles of this?
Yeah. It's within about 10 miles of it.
Yeah.
Looking in the
Okay.
same direction. So I'll let you get that started. Um, so while she's starting that up, this was actually brought to our attention before this friend brought this to us. This lady had brought it to me. Um, she's a gym hound, and she likes to go late night when no one's there. And she was driving home by herself at about 2 or 3 in the morning every night to her rural home and started seeing these things. And she started recording them and started sending them my way. And it's very much what you're looking like here. Um, she decided she actually got a little attached to watching them. I had to tell her not to John Keel herself. Don't overdo
Yeah.
it. Um, she decided she wanted to see if they would notice her back. Um, and I wish she had asked me about it first before she played with fire. But she actually grabbed a flashlight and went out, at the end of her drive and started signaling to them with the flashlight. And fortunately, or unfortunately for her, they did respond back. They started kind of blinking back at her in the same way that she was blinking her flashlight at them. And then one night, one came right above her. It shot from its far away distance where it was sitting at and moved right over the top of her and then went back out again. And I think that's kind of when she stopped videotaping them. I think it was a little bit too close for comfort. So it didn't do anything besides just come and buzzer, I think, kind of came up above. But it certainly knew that she was watching.
It did, didn't it?
Hmm.
That's I could have cut these down, but I really wanted to leave it the full length, just the raw footage so you could see, you know, for yourself
Yeah.
exactly what he was seeing so you didn't see it cut up.
Yeah. So these lights are super interesting. There are I have other video from this lady. And at any one time there could be up to 20 of them in the sky at the same time and they will interact with each other and sometimes some of them will group up and become one and move around that way for a while and then break back up again and scatter. I've watched ones that come in and they look like they bump like bumper cars. They'll come in and kind of bounce off of each other. Sometimes some of them kind of go off and leave some behind, and then these will come back in and these will leave and go back the other way. Like I said, we've tried to debunk them 101 ways, and I cannot give an explanation for what they are. They're self-lit too. They've
Yeah.
been seen over areas where there is no lights. There's no underground lights. That area out there is farmland. It's
Hmm.
pasture and farmland.
It
There
is.
are no big towns or cities underneath of them.
Nope.
So super interesting.
Ian said more curiosities here than the entire Skinwalker Ranch TV show. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Now this is all we're going to show you for probably UFOs on this one, but just know our UFO activity goes back from way before. We have stories, and we have stories about two boys that were in town that got chased one night. It
Yes.
landed over it hovered over their truck and followed them down the road and raced them. We had a
Hmm.
lady just outside of town get chased down a rural road by one. It literally
Hmm.
chased her in her vehicle. We have a English teacher whose favorite story to tell was her sighting. My mother had a sighting. I had a sighting when I was little. I've had 3 sightings just in the last 5 or 6 years or so,
Yeah.
very up close. And the list goes on and on and on and on. It's just a very active area with UFO.
Enzo asked, "Are they all globe shaped?" As far as we can tell by the footage on here, I think they are, aren't
Mhm.
they? Or the
Yeah,
others that you saw?
they're all round. They don't ever seem to flatten out or have any sort of a shape,
And but
even when they
they
group.
yeah, and they fade in and out. They get some of them get
Mhm.
really bright, and you saw in the video there that they just really take a, random pattern, it seems
Yeah.
like.
Mhm.
Chelsea said they're playing pong with each other. Kind of, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Too funny. All right.
All right. Okay, so we're gonna start skirting just outside of Caney a little bit, just out into the Sandhills area, and we're gonna spread out a little bit because, man, this area is where it gets in deep. So this is the Cascade community. Cascades used to be a tiny little town. It's no longer a town anymore. It's not incorporated anymore. But this area is known for the Catman, which is its most normal name around here, or the Four Corners monster, which I mentioned earlier. That's kind of connected to that bridge, and I'll tell you why about that here in just a little bit. Or the Cascades monster, all one and the same. So the Cascades monster holds something very interesting. It's actually true to a point. So its origins are completely true.
Mhm.
This happened back in the summer of 1883. Well, it's when it started. The story begins. Summer of 1883, out here in the Cascades area, just to the west of Caney, and actually down into Caney a little bit. There's a
Mhm.
swath that this is all involved in. So there was a family moving by wagon train through that area. They were out of the New York area. They were actually a fairly wealthy family. They were moving across to head towards California. That's a huge wagon train area out there. A lot of burials and stuff from people who passed along the way. So there's little headstones here and there. Very interesting. They stopped in the Cascades area. This family did because their little daughter's birthday was that day. Her name is Katie. And for her birthday, they gifted her a little locket. Now, that evening, Katie went off to go play in the tall grass, and they weren't really paying attention. And before they knew it, Katie was gone. And they never did find her. They spent the whole evening looking for her. They actually had Indian guides come in to kind of try to track her. They couldn't find her, and after about a week, the family actually had to move on, and they left without Katie, assuming that she had passed, probably in the storms that they'd had the night that she went missing. Uh, so over the next few months, other people in the area started going missing. They had George Bitters, a gentleman. He was a mail carrier out of the Sedan area. He went missing. All that showed back up was his horse and some of the tack and his mail bag, I believe, that was
Mhm.
attached to the horse. Later on, they found, or they didn't find, George Frank Renfer and Oscar Bench, who were 2 hunters out of the rural Cana area. They went up there, and Frank made it back, but Oscar didn't. And they didn't have anything left of him. He just vanished. And then numerous other individuals, I don't have all the names for. We don't have time to go over them all started going missing from the area. Um, Now, during this time, they were just putting in the railway that actually followed the Oklahoma-Kansas border, and Cascade sits right there on that border. At that time, the crews that were putting in the lines started having stuff showing up missing. And they decided to put a stop to it. They thought someone within their little troop there was stealing. So they set up a little trap. They had one gentleman lay down with an expensive necklace on, a gentleman's necklace, and pretend he was asleep because they thought they were going to catch the thief that way. And they did. So the gentleman woke up because he felt it jerk on him. And he looked up and he said what he saw was the most terrifying thing. He said he saw this huge, very dark-skinned thing, messed up face. Skin looked like it was made of leather. It was so dark and rugged and dry looking. He said it smelled awful and it was wearing animal skins. And on its wrists were chains that were embedded into the skin. And it had horrible fangy-like teeth. Said they were just partially rotten. And it just smelled horrible. And it kind of roared at him when he woke up and tried to yank away. It woke the entire railroad crew up and they made chase. And they actually spent the entire night into the morning chasing this thing down. And they finally stopped it in front of a cave. They managed to drop him after a long time. It took several guns and knives to finally kill whatever this thing was. And once they had it dead, they went into the cave because they assumed this is where this thing had been living. And when they got in there, they found little Katie's locket. They found the mail carrier stuff. They found clothing from the hunters and all this other stuff. And in the corner, they found the bones. They found the skulls lined up on the walls. They found piles of bones here and there as if he had been like sorting them and collecting them. And up in this little niche in the cave were all the little trinkets that he had saved, including Katie's little locket. They supposedly dug a hole right there outside the cave and buried him. And later on, they actually found out that this was not a monster. This was a real person. There had been a Delaware Indian that had been imprisoned down in the Osage Indian prison, and he had escaped. And they assumed that he had perished over the winter from the cold. What they didn't know is that he'd been living quite well up in the cave and had been cannibalizing anyone that he could get a hold of for food.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Enzo said trophy bones. Gross.
Trophy bones. Absolutely true story. Anyone can look it up if you'd like. It's actually in, Pam has it there in that book. It's also in old newspaper articles. It truly did happen.
Yep.
So what's happened here is over the years, he's become the boogeyman for our area. Don't stay out after dark because the cat man will get you. A lot of people thought that maybe he didn't die. Maybe they didn't get him buried enough and he came back up and was attacking people. Some people think he became a ghost. He was still haunting the area. Now, what happened is that this legend, the story of this boogeyman, has trickled down into the Caney area and such, and attached itself to some of the bridges. And I will say part of this is my grandfather's fault. My mother lived literally 50 feet away from the first monster bridge that I talked about, the new one that you drive out on now. They actually bought her home when she was growing up, the home she grew up in, and leveled it. And the road that you take out there now actually drives right over the top of where her house used to be. And my grandfather's favorite pastime on summer nights was to go out under that bridge where the kids used to park and wait until they were good and comfortable and knock on the side of their car or scratch at the back. And made sure to spread the story about Caney's evil cat man that would, attack you if you stopped on the bridges. If you know my grandfather, it was exactly something he would love to do. He was a practical
100%.
So it's partially his fault that this story has made its rounds and become a part of our urban legend culture.
Yep.
Well,
Ian said, did the Smithsonian investigate?
Probably. I don't think those bones made it out of there.
They never showed up, did they? They could have
Yeah,
been there.
no.
And he also said it gives Sonny Beans vibes or Sonny Bean vibes. Yeah. It's interesting stuff, though. This is a really good book. There's some really funky stories in there.
Yeah, and if you were interested in the Flower Moon, the
Killers of the
movie,
Flower Moon.
Killers of the Flower Moon. So, interestingly enough, if you dig into that book, you are going to find all of the original write-ups on those stories about what was happening, about the house exploding that you see in the movie and the family, the murders that were taking place. That's all in there. It's
That's
almost an
cool.
original write-up of all of
That's
those
cool.
happenings. Yeah.
Yeah, they have some really just fascinating off the wall tidbits in it too. It's worth it. It's worth a read. You can either they sell them in Pahuska, Oklahoma. You can get them there, or actually, someone in Pahuska had purchased the original plates to the book because this is quite an old book, and you can buy basically new copies, which is what this is on eBay, and it's that's where I bought this, and it's got the
Yeah.
original type set in it. So
And if you're interested, if you're ever in the Bartlesville area, Wendell's Jewelry Shop on the left side as you're driving south out of Bartlesville, you'll notice it because it's got the old headstones in the front that you can
yeah.
buy. He's a stone worker and he works with jewelry. They have that book for sale in there if you just want to
Oh,
go and buy
cool.
a copy and not have to wait for shipping and all that other stuff.
Yeah, that's
So,
good to know. I didn't know that. Awesome. And if you're in Caney, we do have a copy of it at the library. You do have to stay in the library to read it, but it is available to look at.
Yep.
So, yay. All right. Okay. So I'll take this one over for a little bit. This is in the same area where we're talking all these things where the Four Corners Monster is. When I was in high school, there was an area out in the Sand Hills. If you went out, there's a curve in the road where you can go south to Copan. And right down there a little ways was this place. We called it Beaver Flats. It was just a little place off the road that had a creek wind around it. Perfect place to set a keg and have a kegger out there. So there wasn't a lot to do in Caney when I was growing up. I don't think there is to this day, but that's what we used to do. We used to go out there and hang out. And when we were out there one night, there's also a hill just to right in here. It's just to the east of Beaver Flats, and it's just to the west of the original Monster Bridge that you can now walk down to. So this is all right in that same area. Up on top of that hill was the old Kincaid homestead, and it had been abandoned for years and years. And if you went into it, there was still there were curtains hanging, just old and rotten, and there was still some dishes in there, and just whatever they didn't take with them when they moved out was just still there. There were straw ticks up in the second floor, and so we would go up there occasionally when we were out being stupid, and you had to go through this. You had to walk down the road a little ways, and then you had to go through a barbed wire fence, and then you had to go up the side of the hill, and you had to cross another barbed wire fence. I'm sure we were supposed to be doing all this, right? And then you could go on to the homestead and check it out. So this particular night, it was a group of us, and our friend Sean was with us, and we walked up the road. We went through the first barbed wire fence, and we went up the side of the hill, and we had just crossed through the second one. And he was like, man, I got to go to the bathroom. And we're like, okay, well, just catch up with us. And he was like, all right. So we start walking up. We were about halfway between the fence and the homestead. And he starts screaming, just like, terrified screams. And we were like, holy crap, what is going on? And he starts, we finally catch up to him, and he's like, Catman. And he's holding his arm, and he's like, Catman got me. Catman got me. And we're like, dude's been drinking and he got hung up in the barbed wire. That's the first thing that we're thinking. And so we're looking at his arm, and he has got these huge gashes, and we're like, dude, that is not good. So we go back to where the cars were and the lights were and everything, and ended up helping him get it all cleaned up. And in the light of day the next day, y'all, these were not barbed wire marks. These were like, if you look at like your arm right here, these were like huge, 3 huge gashes. He had to get uh oh my God, I lost the word. Stitches. He had to get stitches in his arm. Yeah. Sorry about that. Ooh. But he had to be stitched up. It was bad. It was awful. And, he always maintained that Catman got him. So for years, we've always told that story, that went along with some other stories that we're going to tell, was that this particular thing happened at this particular time. And it was just recently, probably within the last 6 months, we were talking about that. And Jess, was it you that said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She was like, you know what? The more that we talk about this, and we've started talking about Dogman, I wonder if that's what your friend encountered, was an actual Dogman instead of a Bigfoot or, Catman, whatever. Because, you don't see Bigfoot with big claws and things normally, but you do Dogman. And so that's why I put this picture of one up here, because she's right. That is more than likely what he encountered that night.
Yeah. You don't hear about people running into Bigfoot and getting gashed.
No.
So, yeah.
No. And it's still wild. That one's still kind of, ever since we figured that out, or ever since Jess brought that up, it's just like, you know what? I think you're onto something there. Ian said, this land is your land, etc. Yeah, pretty much. And Scotty said, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, more of a dog man. Yeah, absolutely.
More of a dog man.
But and unfortunately, we can't ask Sean because he has passed. But I wasn't the only one that was there with him, and the others that I have talked to, they I need to ask them what they think, because I haven't talked to him since the idea of Dogman came up, to see what they think of it, because it was crazy. It was a crazy night.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty wild. Okay, so this picture, this is Graffiti Bridge.
Yeah, that's the second bridge. Mm-hmm. That's the bridge that's on that you will drive over today. In fact, I took that picture today. Because I didn't have a picture of it. And literally just down past this is the Four Corners, is the road that will turn you one way and used to turn you the other way until they blocked it off. But you can actually see the river road from there if you stand at the corner.
Yep.
So, and the second picture is just a little ways down when you're driving up and out into the actual sandhills themselves. I just added this picture in there. So you just kind of get a feel for what these roads are like. They're beautiful little old country roads, but very shaded in with dark, very dense growth. As Brian Terrell likes to say, it's super squatchy out there.
It is.
Super squatchy. So this is what you drive around on.
It is. And I always think it's interesting, because you'll hear people that don't know Kansas be like, it's all flat and you can see for miles. Not really. Not everywhere. Especially when you get out in the sandhills.
Yeah. Well, our little area. So if you don't know, the Sandhills is the very end of the Ozarks. Baxter Springs to Caney is the very tail end of the Little Ozarks, where what's left of that little bit left on the edge. So we've got a little bit of that rocking. We're in a valley, for instance. So, yeah.
Yep,
and so, very squatchy.
It is squatchy.
Yeah.
Squatchy.
So what were you going to say?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so Bigfoot area, we are heavy in Bigfoot. We're not going to go into a whole bunch of the outliers. Like, we're very famous for Noxie Monster. That's just down to the southeast of us. And of course gets really heavy down into the Osage area. But in our area, for instance, Pam actually had her own run-in with Bigfoot.
I did.
Did you want to tell that?
Absolutely. And this was one of the reasons I wanted Jess to take this picture. It was just past this bridge right here. This is facing west, going out into the sandhills. And what we saw that night, we worked at a local printing company, and we worked overnight, me and three of my friends. And at midnight was when our lunch break was. We put the inserts, like the grocery ad inserts and things, in the newspapers. And so we would go out into the sandhills to see who was at the party that night out at Beaver Flats. So that's what we were doing this night. So we weren't drinking, nothing nefarious was going on. And my friend Shelly was driving. She had a little Toyota Celica, and we came over the bridge this way. And just to the other side, there's a little bit of a curve there, and then it straightens back out. And when we got on the other side of that bridge, her headlights hit this thing, and I was in the front passenger seat. And she slammed on the brakes because whatever it was stopped, and it looked at us, and it bent down, and it jumped. It was standing on the lines in the middle of the road here, and it jumped off to the south. And let me switch frames here. So Jess, when she went out today, she did me a favor, and you can see here's the straightaway on it. See where that little curve is. So just past that curve right there is where that thing was. And we have since gone out, and the guys have measured, and it's kind of a little hard to tell off of the pictures, but where this thing jumped, it went right over the guardrail here, and it cleared everything. It was just gone. It just jumped, and it's a good 30-foot drop down in there from
If you'll point out the line of boulders.
right
So
here.
if you watch the top part of that, that's the boulders. There's another like 10-15 foot drop past that. It's hard to see because how grown in the trees are.
Yeah, if you look down in there, you can kind of see how down far they are.
Yeah, so you've got the rock level that kind of slopes down from it, and then it's a drop off, and it cleared that easily from the middle of that road. I think we measured once, and we thought it was somewhere around 30-35 feet. So
Yeah.
it did it in one, and it didn't run and jump. It
No.
left from a sitting position.
Yes, from
a
like you can
crouch.
see right here where the middle of the road is. It jumped from there clear over down in there. And we called it the Peach Monster at the time, and we're pretty sure it was a Bigfoot, but we called it the Peach Monster because the lights she had on her Celica were kind of crappy. And so we think the shade of light that was whatever this thing was, we think it was like a grayish color. And so the lights hitting it kind of made it shine peachy colored. That's how it ended up with that name.
Yeah.
But so a lot of people have seen this particular picture, and it's just the headshot. But I actually pulled the actual original drawing that I made that night when we got home. Not much of an artist at the time, so apologize for that. But what I wanted to do was show how tall this thing was. Like if you put him up next to a tree, how big he would be. So he's really a huge, huge thing. And this bottom picture here, Dave Politis, he's the missing 411 guy. And he wrote a book on the Hoopa tribe in the Pacific Northwest. And they have a very close relationship with the Bigfoot population in the area up there. And what Dave did was he brought a forensic artist in from Oklahoma, actually, with him to sit down with them and make drawings of what they were seeing. And so that bottom drawing is what they drew. And why I thought this was so significant was all these years I had been made fun of because the thing that I drew has the human eyes. They were like, you're drawing a Bigfoot, but you're giving it these human-shaped eyes. And when I saw this picture, I'm like, this thing has the human-shaped eyes, and it's kind of the same shape of mouth. And, everything was what mine just has longer hair on it than what this one shows. But I was thrilled when I saw this. It just shocked me. And I had to like grab a picture of it to show, because this is the first time I've seen something that similar. But this was in 87 when I saw this thing. So it's been a pretty good long time ago now. But yeah, it was pretty wild. That's my one big holy crap scary moment. And, we talked about, it's too bad we didn't have cameras at the time on our phones. Wouldn't have mattered. This thing, we came around the corner, we saw it, we started screaming, she hit the brakes, and it looked at us, and it was gone. So yeah, but it was Shelly and I in the front, and it was our friends Amy and Tish in the back seat. We all saw it. Now Shelly and I saw it more clearly because we were in the front, but we all saw it. So there was 4 of us. Scotty's saying many reports say that it has very human looking eyes. Yeah. And see, at the time I was like, drawing this and showing of course I told everybody, totally got made fun of. And they're like, yeah, no, there's no way. And so I feel kind of justified this many years later,
Well, I think that's simply because back then, Bigfoot was even more of like a myth, like a
Mhm.
silly thing for people. And I think for it to have anything human looking would denote that it had some kind of sense to it, that it had more to it than just an animal. And I think laughing that off would have been the easiest way because nobody wants to think that something that big and large, if it even existed, would have any kind of mental facilities to it.
Yes,
So I think that's even scarier for them. That's probably why they laughed that off because they didn't
probably.
want to think about something like that.
Good point.
Yeah.
I saw this and it was just a few weeks later that my friend Sean had that encounter where he was scratched. And we always kind of put those 2 things together. But if this thing had claws, I didn't see it. Of course, I didn't really see its hands because it
Hmm.
just took off jumping. But there was, and Jess can tell this one, we found out within the last 5 or 6 years, maybe, just put a call out to everyone, hey, if you have any Bigfoot stories, we would love to hear them. And a good friend of hers actually came back with a story. Do you want to tell it?
Hmm. Yeah. So I pulled up his original write up of it so I
Oh,
can read
nice.
straight from it so everybody can hear it. And I'm just going to go ahead and say who it is. He's since passed, but he actually had no problem with us sharing his name. He didn't do this anonymously. So this interview was with John Randall. He grew up here in the area, and I'm just going to tell his story verbatim so you guys can hear it. And I will let you know this happened at the original Monster Bridge that we talked about down that pathway that you can walk now. And that's literally almost straight over from where Pam's was. And it
Mhm,
happened right around the same time. So I am guessing that this is the same one. So we're getting to
mhm.
hear 2 stories of the same one, I believe.
But we only
He
found out
said,
about this one just less than 10 years ago. And it
yes.
happened back in the late 80s too.
Yeah, this one happened in 1987. It said I was 14 years old, and it would have been around 1987, around the summer to fall time. Me, my sister, and her boyfriend at the time drove down to Monster Bridge, and I put original on there so I could denote which one it was, in his little car after dark. We stayed out there drinking and spray painting the bridge up a bit, as we all did when we were young in this area for about an hour or so when we decided to pack up and go. We all got back in the car. He turned it on, and we saw this thing standing about 30 to 40 feet ahead of us, right on the edge of the car headlights. It looked to be about 6 feet tall, shaggy, rusty brownish red fur, kind of clumpy looking, and had red eyes. It was standing to the right side of the road with its right side to us and its head turned, looking straight at us. We stayed there for a little bit, discussing what it was we were looking at. I told my sister it had to be a Bigfoot, but she refused to believe it and said it must be something else. Then my sister's boyfriend let his foot off the brakes for a quick moment, and the car moved forward just an inch. The movement registered with the creature, and it quickly hunched down and turned to its left at the same time, and then leaped about 8 feet away, and then bounded off into the woods at a high rate of speed. My sister's boyfriend slammed on the gas, and we got out of there. To this day, my sister still refuses to say that we saw anything, like she blocked it out or she doesn't want to admit it. Not long after the incident, I realized there were deep ditches on each side of the road, about 3 feet deep, which would have made that creature about 9 feet tall. Permission to use name and recounts in publications. So, yeah. Interestingly enough, another little side note to this whole scenario where we're starting to see all this stuff pop up in 86, 87, it's also right after the big flood that we had at that
Yep,
point.
it's true.
Another interesting thing, we've found that when we have great amounts of water come through, it seems to trigger the ley lines and we have all this weird stuff. kind of pop up. And 86, 87 was a really hotbed time for all of this stuff happening around the Caney area and down into Birtlesville too, where the brunt of the flood happened.
Yeah. It was a huge flood down. I mean, we got flooded, but it cut Bartlesville in half.
Yeah. So we have many other Bigfoot stories from the area. I didn't know if you wanted to tell them or not. We got a little late on time, but we also have a lot of stories left over. Did you want to do a part 2?
Yeah,
All
we
of
could totally
this?
do a part 2. Absolutely,
Okay.
because we are running kind of
It is.
long.
So I think what I'm going to do here, I have a couple of the stories pulled up. I think I'm just going to go through some of them before we go to the
Absolutely.
notebook games, and then we'll do a part 2. So in part 2, we're going to start talking about the cult activity that was happening around Caney, all the way from the 40s through the 70s. We're going to talk about the El Cato Cemetery and the Witch's Grave and the Pioneer Lights and the Little People and the Labadee Mansion and the Copan Lake Lights, and probably a little bit of some other stuff now that we're going to have a little bit extra time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to go ahead and tell some of these stories that we have because they're amazing. Some of these Bigfoot stories. Like Pam said a few years back, I put a call out for area Bigfoot stories anonymously because we knew that was probably the only way we were going to get these things. So there's no names attached to these, but I'm going to tell a few of them because they're just super interesting. So this one, it says, one time we went raccoon hunting as kids with my dad out on the government ground out by Monster Bridge. So this would be the Monster Bridge from now. That little stone one that we saw. Okay. I have never been afraid of the dark or what is in the dark before. I was about 16. We got out and parked on the bridge. It was kind of an eerie, foggy, no moon kind of night. We let our hound out of the truck and he immediately took off to the woods. We had to walk through some really tall grass. He opened up on a coon right off the bat, and that just means he started to yell, he started doing the howl that the coon dogs do. Yeah, when they find one.
Sharp band.
Yeah. He was trailing it. Then out of nowhere, mid-bark, it sounded like he got choked. Then we didn't hear anything else. My dad said that it was weird. So we sat and listened a while in the dark to see if he would open up again. It was so quiet, we started to shine our lights around to look for him. Nothing. Then we hear what sounded like walking. It was too heavy to be a small critter, such as a coon or rabbit. It was something large. At first, my brother and I were getting creeped out because it was getting so close to us. We said, "Dad, did you hear that?" My dad, an avid hunter, just shrugged it off, saying, "Oh, it's probably just a deer." We heard the dog again, and now he was just north of us, about 30 yards away, so we knew it wasn't him. My dad shined his light around and didn't see any deer. We walked a little bit further, looking for the dog. Then we stopped again a bit to listen for him to bark. When they tree a coon, they have a significant bark indicating they are treed. So we sat in the dark waiting to hear this when we suddenly heard large crunching footsteps again. By this point, we had lights on, all looking around us, and nothing. Then suddenly the sound started moving directly in front of us in the clearing out in the tall weeds. You could hear it crunch as if it was a very large human, and it walked to just in front of us in the wide open. We shined our lights, but nothing. I felt the hairs on my arm stand up. It was the creepiest feeling ever. Even my dad said that it was super weird. Then our dog did the weird choking bark again. My dad says, "Well, looks like we're not going to get one tonight, guys." We were so glad he said that because we were ready to get the heck out of there. We loaded up in the truck, got the dog, and we were gone. So we have found this before, invisible big feet.
Yeah.
Pam and I have actually encountered one twice. Once while we were out by the El Cato area, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, where one actually threw a rock at us.
Yeah. Your
And
mom
there
was
was
with us.
nothing. Yeah, nothing was in front of us, but we had a rock thrown at our car.
Yep.
And the second time when we were out investigating a cemetery, it actually threw a rock at Mike Coy, and I think it just almost hit him.
Yep.
We've actually never seen that one, but we've heard it, and we could feel it kind of running through the trees. And I believe we have a picture of kind of like a weird fog in the tree line where we think it was standing.
Yeah, I'll have to dig that out. I'll make myself a note for the next show. We can dig that one out.
Yeah. So another one, and I'm not going to pull out all the paperwork for it because it's so long, but I'm going to give you a brief account. Another one happened out near the dam area in Caney, back about 15 or so years ago. A gentleman and his wife were at home, and he remembered that he had forgotten something out in his truck and had gone out. It was very late. He'd gone out in the dark to go get it, and he came around his truck and he smelled it first. And then he heard it walking towards the truck, and he could see by the little bit of light that was coming out of his truck cab that it was hitting something very large and very furry and had very human-like eyes. It said he felt just a sense of dread, backed out of his truck as fast as he could, slammed the door shut behind him, and went running for the house. And it actually made chase. He heard it chasing him. He barely just made it in the house and got the door slammed shut, and it locked before it banged against the door, and was screaming at his wife to lock all the windows and to lock the other door, pulling shotguns out. And they stood watch for the rest of the night, waiting as it paced around the house. And that one's actually been seen out in that area. We have another story about a boy was staying with his grandmother out that way at her home, and he watched it leap the fence lines. It was running full tilt, and it would literally almost just kind of jump a little bit, and it was clearing entire fences
Which
off
is
the back side of his
crazy.
property. Yeah. And we have another gentleman who saw it just off the river back there. He was out fishing, and it came around the bend of the river and gave him a look like, you're going to give up them fish that you just got. And that's exactly what he did. He said he just picked up his tackle box and walked away from his rigger that had all the fish on it.
I would have been like, yep.
And never went back to that spot. He was like, the Bigfoot can have it.
No kidding. Yikes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's freaky.
It is.
I was looking to see.
Yeah. We have so many more than that, where we can't tell them all though. But yeah.
Oh, I found it. Let me figure out if I can show it or not. Oh man, it's tiny.
What are you looking for?
I was looking for that picture of the Bigfoot back in the tree, the weird shape thing, yeah. And I found it. But if you want to talk for a minute, I'll see if I can drag it up real quick.
I was going to say, Chelsea said these spry big feet should start a long jump team. They actually could. These things can like move. They almost kind of remind me of like Spring Hill Jack, from the UK.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep talking.
But
I'm digging.
Oh, I was kind of looking through the chat room here. But yeah, Bigfoot everywhere, like a Noxie monster, and we will probably do sometime a full segment on the Noxie monster, because that's a story in and of itself. We also have a family that lives nearby, no names, of course, but their whole family is longtime experiencers, and their kids have witnessed a Bigfoot on their property several times. Each one of them have seen it personally. And holy cow, they're everywhere here. I think it's kind of funny. I like to tell the story when we first met Brian Terrell. Of course, he's Red Dirt Cryptids along with Scotty. But we met him, and he was asking, you know, have you ever had any Bigfoot in the area? And we were like, sure. What do you want to know? And he was like, well, do you have any cases? And Pam was like, sure, we've got cases. Would you like them? And he was like, you'd share them with me? And we were like, sure. And Pam sent along our case files, and he was like, holy cow. I think he thought we'd have like one or two, maybe.
No, we had way more than that. Because, well, I was like, yeah, we probably have about 20. And he was like, oh, cool. Yeah, just send them on over. And I sent them to him, and he's like, holy crap, you have like 20. I was like, I know. That's what we were telling you. Okay, here it is.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah. There. Now I can see what we're looking at too. Okay, so when we took this, that's Jess holding the meter in her hand right there. And it's this thing right here. And I don't know if I can pull in on it anymore. Let me switch over to that screen and see if I can zoom in anymore. No, it's not going to let me. I'm as zoomed in as I can get. Darn it. So I don't know how good everyone can see that, but it's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's hard to see in this picture. We might have to like blow it up and then show it on the next one.
Okay, and if you see here, it's moved from that original picture.
Yeah, it's a weird area.
It is.
It feels like it chases you every time you go. You have to go down a long little dirt road to get to the cemetery, and it skirts in these trees. If you've ever been to one of the presents, you might have heard the story about Mike putting his recorder out. So there's a fence with a cattle guard to get into the cemetery so the cattle don't get in. And he hung his recorder right on the fence line at the entry as we went in. And we went in for an investigation one night, and he set it to record and said, you know, this is Mike. We're at such and such cemetery, the time. And then he hung it on the fence, and he got back in the car with us, and we drove into the cemetery, and we did our investigation. Took a few hours, came back through, and on our way back through, we stopped there, and he hopped out, grabbed his recorder, and we left. And we were a part ways down the road when he went, well, crap. He goes, it only recorded for like 20 seconds. And we were like, oh, that stinks. And he goes, wait a minute, listen to this. And when he played it, you could hear him say his name, where we were at, the time. You hear him hang it on the fence. You hear him walk back to the car, and you hear us drive off. And the minute you can't hear us anymore, you hear something very big stomp up to it. You hear it get fiddled with, and you hear a really loud huff, like a sound. And then it goes click, and it goes off.
So whatever this was, walked up and turned it off.
Turned it off. So, yeah.
Because we get out, we get done with our investigation, and we go back to the gate, and Mike grabs it, and it's voice activated. So it's only going to play, when it hears something. And he gets back in the vehicle. So he immediately turns it on. And he's like, it's only got like less than 2 minutes on it. And we were like, well, how did that happen? And so he plays it, and he's like, son of a bitch, something turned it off.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah. Enzo was talking about when we originally took him around town to show him. I was expecting a tall tale of Bigfoot sightings 20 years ago. And you said, oh, this was last week.
Yep.
Yep. Absolutely. And Scotty says the area of southeastern Kansas and northeastern Oklahoma into southwest Missouri seems to be a hotbed for dogmen as well as Bigfoot encounters. Lots of stories. Absolutely. Yep. And some other stories about some other cryptids that we'll get into in the next little episode of this, because we're going to go to a part 2. Because we have so much more. I'm actually kind of glad we're going to do a part 2, because I kind of let some of the little stuff fall to the wayside, because I was like, we're not going to have enough time to do all of that. But now we can kind of beef it up a little bit and give you a little bit more info. Yeah. But I think we should probably end it here and do some notebook games. Vehicle.
Poor Ian, you're catching our southeast Kansas accent here, aren't you? I'm sure we sound hilarious. Yeah,
No.
we laugh about the fact that we say the words correctly in our head, but we don't realize how hickified we are until we start talking on a podcast and we hear it come out of our mouth and we're like, ooh, that's cringy. But yeah. So yay. Are we moving on to the
Yay.
notebook game?
Let's do some notebook games because it's
Sweet.
getting late. Okay, so for anybody on here who doesn't know what the notebook games are, I pulled 5 notebooks off my shelf. I keep everything written in notebooks because I'm old school and I'm lame. But it makes for fun games.
It
So
does.
what you're going to do is you are going to pick a notebook 1 through 5 and then pick a page number 75 or under. And I will go to that page and read whatever's on it, no matter what. It could be something great. It could be something weird. It could be something lame. Whatever it is, I'm going to read it. So
Yay. Oh,
everybody
check
start
this
picking
out.
it out.
I got to share what Chelsea just put. She said, I recently shared about this show on another podcast fan page. It's the and that's why we drink. I love that podcast. That's cool.
Yay!
A bunch of fans there were excited about listening to this show. Thank you so much. That's awesome.
Thank you. That is awesome. Thank you for
Yay.
sharing.
Yeah, those guys are hilarious.
Okay,
Alrighty.
so we got here. Jackie wants
Notebook 2, page
2.
42. So
Okay.
if everybody else can start choosing a notebook number and a page number, we'll get them lined up for Jess. I'm excited. I'm always ridiculously excited for this game. Oh, she said she just saw them live. Very cool. Yeah, I would totally geek out, I'm sure.
Okay, so Notebook 2, page 42 is actually about Woody Derenberger and Indrid
Ooh,
Cold when
nice.
when he first met him. So, and I'm just going to read it straight from the page. So he's already pulled up in the UFO, and Woody's parked. So it says it looked like man was around 5'10" with long dark hair combed straight back with heavily tanned skin. He had a broad grin and his arms crossed and tucked under his armpits like it was cold outside. Woody claimed he didn't use his voice but talked to him in his head. He gave Woody the impression that he wanted him to roll down his window. He was also wearing a dark top coat and clothing underneath that looked green and metallic. Woody sensed the words, "Do not be afraid. We mean you no harm. I come from a country much less powerful than yours." He asked for Woody's name, and he told him, "My name is Cold. I sleep, breathe, and bleed, even as you do." Cold looked at the lights from Parkersburg and asked him what kind of a place it was. Woody explained what a city was. Cold explained where he was from, that they called them gatherings. While this exchange was going on, the craft ascended and hovered around 40 to 50 feet above the roadway while traffic still passed by them. Cold told Woody to report their encounter to the authorities and told him he would confirm it and see Woody again soon.
Ooh.
So that's what's on that page. So for any of you who don't know who Woody Derenberger is and Indrid Cold, so this was around the time that the Mothman stuff was going on in Point Pleasant. Now, this wasn't in Point Pleasant. This happened outside of Point Pleasant, but it's all kind of one and the same. It was the same kind of weird symptoms and things that were happening around that entire experience. The Silver Bridge going down and the Mothman and the UFO sightings and the pterodactyl sightings and the TNT area stuff that was happening. Just insanity. I believe, did we do an Indrid Cold one with On the Fringe?
I think we did, yeah.
I think we did.
Which Enzo said the smiling man. Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
the smiling man.
so creepy.
Yeah. All right.
Jackie
What's
said,
our next one?
very interesting. Thank
Yeah.
you. Okay, the next one is Enzo, notebook 1, page 12, please.
Okay. Easy enough.
Yeah, Enzo said a lot of original Men in Black in that area too. That's very true. There's a lot of, we actually did one, I think we did one on Strange.
Did we?
Yeah, it was around the same time we did the Black Eyed Kids.
Yeah, we talked because we did the Black Eyed Kids and the Men in Black. So we talked about we talked about Indrid Cold a little bit because I think he was a Men in Black, actually.
Mhm.
He kind of
Probably.
fits the description.
He does.
So this is up from a collection. We were working on some doppelganger stories, and this is one of the stories. This one's called I Saw Myself. It says, late at night, I usually go to the bathroom multiple times, but for the past 4 days, every time I go to leave, I can see myself standing in the mirror from the corner of my eye. It's like the other me is watching me leave the bathroom. It terrifies me to the point where I
Ew.
almost run out without looking directly at the mirror. I never told my husband about it because I didn't want to acknowledge it out loud. Earlier today, I took a nap on our bed while he sat in the chair next to it watching TV. When I woke up, he told me that he had seen me sit up and crawl backwards to the edge of the bed and stand up in front of our bedroom door from the corner of his eye. He thought it was weird I got up like that, and because I'm the last month of my pregnancy and I can't really move so well without it hurting. So he tried talking to me. When I didn't answer, he looked at the door to find me not there and still sleeping in the bed.
Oh,
I got
no.
really creeped out. Yeah. And I finally told him about what I'd been seeing in the bathroom. He thought it was creepy as well, but didn't want to really talk about it anymore because he thinks it'll give whatever it is power or energy. I have no idea what it wants or why we have both seen it. And that's
Oh,
the end of that
crap.
story.
That's a
Yeah.
mimc kind of thing.
Yeah.
Doppelganger, a mimic. Ooh.
Ew, but it crawled backwards off the bed.
Oh, no. That goes. I remember our last show that we did. It was What You See Out Your Window. And like every other
Mhm.
story we told, we were both like, nope. This is another nope. Ooh. No,
Ooh,
thank
might have to
you.
do a doppelganger. A doppelganger show might
Ooh,
be
that'd be
cool.
a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one's Ginger, notebook 4, page 68, please.
All right. Almost
We
there.
might
Hold on.
we'll do that in season 2. We'll do a
Yeah.
doppelganger, a
Um,
doppelganger.
this is some of the activity in Mount Shasta, California. This one is on the Ghost Choir.
Enzo said maybe it was the baby itself. Oh,
Ew.
Enzo, no.
Ah!
Who?
Yuck. Okay,
That's gross.
Ghost Choir, Mount Shasta. Here we go. Mount Shasta's in California, in case anybody doesn't know. Reports of sounds of choirs singing often reported as far back as the early 1800s, often accompanied by the Oz effect, unnerving quiet, strange smells, strange atmospheric colors or fog, strange animal activity or loss of animal and insect activity, time slips, and missing time. And one of the experiencer stories, while taking a solo walk up the stream, I realized I could hear something like a distant choir. It was very faint, but audible. I was focused on rock hopping, but the sound kept going, and maybe it had been there the whole time. Choral voices competing with the babbling of the brook. It seemed to come from way downstream. I couldn't make out a tune. It almost sounded like the creepy singing from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Ligeti's micropolyphonic requiem. What I'd heard sounded more like it was all women, but with the same plane of sound effect. The only explanation was that something like a Gregorian women's choir was practicing in the area, barely in range, barely there at all. So this is Mount Shasta is its own Skywalker Ranch. Let me tell you, this is one of the things, one of the lots of things that happen on Mount Shasta. It's one
We
of the weird
talked about doing a
oddities.
Mount Shasta
Yeah.
episode, didn't we? We may have to do that one too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Like
so said Mount
this-
Shasta has a lot of weirdness around it. Absolutely, it does. It's supposed to be hollow and have a whole civilization of aliens in it. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. All right. What's next?
Ian said, "Is that still on your road trip bucket list, Enzo?" I'm sure it is.
That would be cool to see.
That would be so cool. Okay, the next one is Chelsea with book 3, page 53. And yes, she goes up to 65, so you're good.
Actually, 75. So you can go up
Oh,
to
that's
75.
right. I keep saying 110 down from it. I think originally it was 65, and for whatever reason that has stuck in my head and refused to move.
This one is on the mass bird deaths in Beebe, Arkansas in 2011.
Cool.
So December 31st, 2011, thousands of red-winged blackbirds all died mid-flight and rained down on the small community of Beebe. Samples of the birds showed death by blunt force trauma, and that the trauma happened mid-flight as the birds were dead long before they hit the ground. The weather radar that night picked up an echo that meteorologists could not explain. A non-weather echo appeared at 1,500 feet, well over the birds. It was shaped like a mushroom with no movement. Witnesses said they watched the birds fly into an invisible wall. Also in Beebe, Arkansas, 2011, a mass fish death in an Arkansas river 12 miles west of Beebe on December 29th, 2011. So this would have been 2 days beforehand. Estimated 80,000 to 100,000 fish died at the same time. A band of dead fish, 4 foot wide and 12 miles long, ran along the banks within 2 hours' time. Toxicology reports and trauma reports were all negative. So they
That's
don't know why they
wild.
died.
That
Yeah.
is wild. Interesting
Yeah.
one. All right. Ian chose notebook 2, page 56.
Okay.
Yeah, the bird deaths and things like that always freak me out, especially if that one had like a mushroom cloud attached to it. That is weird. It makes me think, we keep saying Nope, but there's a movie called Nope. It's a Jordan Peele movie, and it was about a biological UFO basically that hid in clouds. And that's what it makes me think of. Have you seen that?
Yes. It's
Oh,
weird.
it is weird. My son loves it.
Okay.
I've watched it like 3 times.
So this page is literally just a listing of all the names of all of the cryptids that have been cited in Oklahoma that I have
Oh,
found. It's
nice.
literally just their names. Like the stories are not with them. Although if you're interested in one, I could probably tell you the story because they're all really weird and I kind of remember them. So I'm just going to list them. There's 111. So get ready.
Ooh, here
Yeah.
we go.
Some of them are repeats. So the ones that
Okay.
repeat, I won't. Okay. So we've got the howler, the giant dog, the giant octopus, the goat man, the big cabin lions, the wolf deer, the cat creature, the pig dog, the monkey creature, gorilla monster, chimp box, Murphy's monster, big cats, thunderbird, cave dweller, alligator head, wolf man, unicorn, 3-foot lizard man, werewolf, large lizard man, large vanishing dog, 7-foot red-eyed creature, black spook dog, witch shapeshifter, 4-legged shapeshifter, little black humanoid, goat body devil head, deer woman, manitou shapeshifter, bipedal black cat creature, half man, half wolf, Dibble creature, the lake monster, the deer lady, the horned man, the centaur baby, the giant bat, horned
Take a breath.
monster, giant bipedal dog, devil man, tall pink creature, the lake tin killer thunderbird, griffin, giant black sparrow, the prue demon, the bipedal monkeys, the 3-foot dog face creature, the white hairy creature, the old lady with the demon head, the alligator headed human, Greenville monster, the river gremlins, the old goat woman, the thunderbirds, the 8-foot red eyed monster, the half werewolf deer, the leather skinned frogman, the biscuit hall monster, the green white frogman monster, leprechaun, the tiny man, the 20-foot snake, the armadillo lizard, and the pterodactyl.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah. Holy
Dang.
cow. Oklahoma loves their cryptids.
They
Let me tell
do.
you.
They love the weird. Let's see. Let me catch a couple of comments here. On YouTube, there's a researcher, Brown Dwarf, that does a lot of video around Mount Shasta area. If I go there, I'll probably try to hook up with him for a tour. That'd be cool.
That would be awesome.
And Enzo said, nope, the movie was okay. The ending was silly. What was their plan? Good point. Yeah, the ending
Yeah.
was kind of silly, but it was a
Yeah,
good, it was pretty cool. And Ian said, is there a long history of peyote cultivation in Kansas? Sounds like it, doesn't it?
Oh, if you know about where those are, let me know, because I'd probably use that sometime.
And Chelsea said, good Lord, Oklahoma is crazy. Yes, it is. For sure.
Oklahoma is definitely.
Nutters.
All right. So we've got what? Notebook 5, page 32 from Chris.
Yep.
Okay.
It's funny.
Oh, we're on a roll here. So this is actually from the research that we were doing, one of those believe it or not episodes we did with the
Ooh,
guys.
yeah.
So this is gonna be a weird cryptidy thing.
Yay.
This is the 1877 giant sea beast from Missouri.
Fun.
Yes. A very strange creature was sighted in St. Genevieve, Missouri in 1877. The Dundee Courier included a detailed description stating that the monster was at least 70 feet in length, with the head of a sea lion and a tangled mane like a horse. The immense horn on its head was shaped like a pelican's bill, and it had a long tail that looked like a double-edged saw, with a spreading fan-like fin at the end. According to the article, the beast made no sound apart from an occasional puff, loud and sonorous, similar to that of a sea cow. So here's the article. I'm going to read the article to you. The monster lay in the sand, sunning himself, evidently oblivious to all the surroundings. A hasty survey was taken by the party, and it was agreed that it was at least 70 feet in length. The head, as described originally by Egan, was shaped much like that of a dog, but Mr. Ernst maintains that it bore greater resemblance to that of a sea lion, though several times larger. The pelican-shaped bill was also observable, and this was estimated to be 5 feet in length, being very sharp and pointed, and having the appearance of an immense horn or tusk for use in offensive warfare.
Dang.
The body was the size of a flour barrel and covered with brown, shiny scales as large as a human hand. Along the neck was also observed the mane, long and tangled like that of a horse. It had 6 legs, on each side a huge fin or paddle. The tail was long and gradually sloping to the end, which was set off with a spreading fan-like fin, and the edges of the tail were indented, so as to give it the semblance of a double-edged saw. Dundee Courier, October 23rd, 1877. And there is a photo to it somewhere. I have a little hash mark here that shows that there's a photo.
Oh,
So.
cool. We got to see the photo. We'll have to dig it out for next time.
Yeah, we'll have to do that.
So, and that was in Missouri?
That was in Missouri. A giant sea beast that looked like a half a seahorse and
Oh, I don't know about that one. That's pretty wild. Did it say where in Missouri? I missed that part.
Genevieve.
Genevieve.
It was outside of Genevieve, St. Genevieve, Missouri, 1877.
I don't know where that's at. Huh.
I don't know either.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. But, you know, I will say this. We say it's crazy, but there are a lot of spring-fed rivers and creeks and things in Missouri, and all of that cave system, they run through caves, and all those cave systems connect back into the Appalachian Mountains, into the Kentucky, into that whole mountain range. And that's where you'll find the Kentucky goblins and all those really weird creatures.
Yeah. All right. Do we have any more?
I think that was it.
That's it. All right. Right on time.
Enzo did say, I want to say there's a lot of tales of water horse type creatures all around the world. That's the truth. There are.
Yes, there is. But I think that's a given. So the water is really the last place we haven't completely explored, and we can't.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have something mysterious, I think you're probably going to pick the water, whether it's true or not.
I would agree with that. We know more about outer space and the moon and everything than we do about the oceans. that are on the earth with us,
Very
because it's
true.
just so hard to really research. So
Yeah.
yeah, pretty interesting. So what we will do, we're going to wrap up tonight, and we are going to let this one roll over into a part 2. So join us back on November 20th, Wednesday, November 20th at 7:00 for part 2 of our local lore.
Yeah. All right. So are we ready to get out of here?
I think so.
All right. So, okay. Thank you, everybody who hung out in the chats with us. It was great fun.
It was.
Join us, of course, back on the 20th, and we'll do part 2, and we'll try to bring you a couple of those things that we're kind of missing this time. And we'll delve more into the Caney area because it is nutty, let me tell you. Links for our research and show notes can be found on our website, www.bordertownparanormal.com. Click on the Bordertown Strange button at the top. Oh, something. Oh, sorry. I had an email come across my page. It scared me.
And of course, it's right when I clicked something, I was like, what do I do?
Yeah. All right. So remember, like I said at the very beginning, we have this next show coming up on the 20th, and then our last show for the year will be December 4th. It's going to be our Christmas party show. So come in and join us and join the party. We're going to have fun in the chats and stuff and play some games and hang out with all of our podcasting friends and have a good time. And then we're going to go dark until the beginning of January, so we can all enjoy our holidays. But we'll be back with all new shows then.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be lots of fun. We'll start our second year.
Ooh, that's crazy. And if you guys have any ideas or any things that you would like us to dive into and do a show on, let us know. You can either reach us on Facebook or send it through YouTube, or you can email us at bordertownstrange@gmail.com.
Yep. We will totally do anything that you know, like send it our way. We'll put a show together. It'll be fun. Yeah. Not that we don't have 1,001 ideas, but sometimes we don't have a direction for the 1,001 ideas. We're just like, I don't know. What are we gonna do?
We've got like 50,000 books and stuff.
Yeah. Anywho, okay, so everybody go off and have a wonderful evening. Keep it weird, keep it strange, and remember, it's all connected. And good night.
Good night, everybody.